soul. You can't take my soul. You might take my freedom, but you can't take my soul. You can't take my soul.
Whether it's emancipation or assassination, no, I fought for emancipation. My intentions were pure, you can debate it, but no, never ever shook hands with Satan. My plans are amazing, I thank and praise them. When I die, don't cry, just congratulations. A million more feet will stamp the pavement with plans for changes, no exaggeration.
Hello guys, this is Eddie from Real TV, and today I'm bringing you my quickscope tutorial. This tutorial was always going to be coming since my Modern Warfare 2 and COD quickscope tutorial that came out for Modern Warfare 2, because I did receive quite a lot of views for that, and I didn't really think the tutorial was that good at the time, because right then I just uploaded what I knew. So right now I'm just trying to upload a full ultimate quickscoper guide for Black Ops, and I think it should cover everything about quickscoping in the game, because I'm really trying to go out all hard on this one, because I have watched other quickscope tutorials on YouTube, and so far for Black Ops there's no tutorial that actually covers everything to do with quickscoping. They all highlight little issues what are correct, however not combined it doesn't make much sense. So what I'm going to explain is the full guide to quickscoping, and yes guys, this is the next installment in Real Snipe, even though the title doesn't say so. Okay guys, step 1 is the timing, and yes, it's always what I cover first, because I think it's the main element in quickscoping. If you don't know how to time it right, it's never going to hit, even if you are on target. So as you can see, you shoot just as soon as you see a little bit through the scope. So forget about what anyone else tells you, you shoot as soon as you see a little bit through the scope. This is what other people try to tell you to do. They try to tell you to shoot before you see through the scope, and as you can see here in my timing tips, it's just not accurate. The actual bullets are getting sprayed everywhere. Only if you are getting sprayed into the center, and that's actually just due to luck. Over here I'll show you the proper technique. So when I'm doing it properly, as you can see, the bullets are getting sprayed closer together, and the reason why they're not always overlapping each other is because I'm just trying to quickscope into the center of the crosshairs, not exactly to one specified point. So even with some anomalies at the bottom, it still looks pretty close together, and that's what you want. So this was my timing tips, and I hope it helps. Next step is error reduction. Normally I would actually cover error reduction at the end, but it's because I don't want anyone to pick up any bad habits what will be hard to break out of. So I've categorized them into 2 sections: don't do and never do. Don't hold your breath while quickscoping, and never move whilst you're quickscoping, and never use the middle of the crosshairs to position your shot. You don't hold your breath whilst quickscoping because it just doesn't help register it as a shot if you use the timing I showed you. So you can still hold your breath and quickscope, but you would actually have to hold the aiming button for a little longer, and some people might tell you that it's a hard scope who have actually learned how to do the proper technique. And I'll show you why you shouldn't use the middle of your crosshairs to position the shot in the next step, which will be fine aiming. Don't move whilst you quickscope because it makes your shots inaccurate. Many of you will not know what I'm talking about, but just choose a standard L96 class with a normal scope, not a variable scope. But what you can see is at close range, every time I zoom in, the crosshairs seem to be on the person's body, so it's 100% accurate at close range. So you can even do one of them flimsy quickscopes that I was trying to show you at the beginning, and it will still hit. You could even do a no scope and it would hit. That's why you should actually do a no scope at close range. So you shouldn't even be quickscoping at the range I showed, as you have to remember that your targets are not standing still. At medium range, which is the optimum quickscoping range, you can see that it's not always zooming in on his body. So when I'm shooting, you can see that I even missed one, and this is with a static zoom. And with a static zoom, I've actually calculated that it's around 70% accurate when you're using the normal scope. So if its accuracy is 70% with a static zoom, which means just zooming into the middle of my crosshairs, it means that it's not really that good, so you have to adjust. And this is what I call fine aiming. When you zoom in, you've got to try and get the middle of the crosshairs on the person's body, and the way you do it is by kind of like dragging it, but you don't really drag it essentially. Don't try and drag it, because it's not a drag scope. Drag scopes are like, they're held on for longer, which gives you more time to position your shot. If you start dragging it wildly, you're gonna keep missing, and I've just figured that out. So as you can see here, I'm just doing like the dragging, and it doesn't really work very well, as you can see. And what I've realized is a good way to like explain it is just think of the middle of the crosshairs in your scope, and think of trying to put that on the person's body. So use your eyes and really try and like see once you zoomed in. Once you zoomed in, like for the little time you can actually see through the scope, try and position the middle of the actual cross on the person's body. So here's another example when I'm just running there. So as you can see, I saw him, I just looked through the scope and I positioned it on his body. Okay, let me just get to the bottom of this variable zoom hype. For me, I don't think the variable scope is very good, and many people are like, variable scope is the best to quickscope with, and let me explain why everyone thinks it's that great. So at close range, as you can see, is 100%, so was the L96 normal scope, but at mid range is when you notice the difference. When I'm zooming in with static scopes, it looks like it's almost 100% on target, and I've actually calculated it to be around 98%, which is actually very good. So the reason why everyone thinks it's easier is because it is easier, and it actually makes sense. It's because it hasn't zoomed in as much. That's why the scope doesn't actually wobble as much. But here's the problem with it. Everyone I see using it is actually just doing static scopes, and the reason why they're not fine aiming is because the sensitivity is different as it's zoomed out more. So you get most people quickscoping with it only at medium range. I've actually learned how to fine aim with it, but that's only because I learnt with the standard scope. So how do you get good at fine aiming? Combat training. Combat training is actually a good source of practice. Many people on Modern Warfare 2 used to practice in sniper lobbies, but in combat training you can just like simulate other people and practice here. Here I was actually doing some drag scopes as well, and here's the actual verdict that I've actually called. Fine aiming and drag scoping are almost the same thing, so once you learn how to fine aim, you should learn how to drag scope as well. Here was a fine aim as it was very quick. My normal drag scopes, if you see them, is actually slower. So like if you're learning how to fine aim, also learn how to drag scope too. And I think it's self-explanatory, that's why I'm not even going to make a tutorial for it. Just like drag the scope on target, which means just drag the middle of the target. So it doesn't have to be as quick as a normal quickscope if you're actually going to do drag scope. But drag scopes are also more accurate than normal quickscopes. So if you are kind of far, you should actually just go for a drag scope, like the one that I just did then. So just get used to a fine aiming and combat training with a normal L96 scope, and then once you've done that basically, then I'll take you to the next step. So you should be able to quickscope people, even get into far ranges. Timing plus don't hold your breath plus stand still equals the good quickscope. So now it's left with the best quickscoping class, and many people will say hands down is the variable scope with like the other attachments, blah blah blah, and steady aim perk. And for me, I don't think this is the best quickscoping class, because I've seen one other which is just better than the variable scope, and this is why I hate the variable scope. So just behold this class.
Cobra ready for deployment.
Okay guys, this is my best quickscoping class, and that close range, as you can see, is 100% accurate, and if I was to go to medium range, you would also see it's still very accurate. It looks like it's on his body at all times, or almost all times, and this is because it's actually 98% accurate on a static zoom. And the reason why it's actually better than the variable scope is because it actually zooms in closer, which makes the accuracy very good. So if you combine it with fine aiming, then you just make love. It's just finished. The best quickscoping class there is. Here I've just told Enraged Chicken to kill me, and this is just to show you that even he knows how to fine aim. And although he uses a variable scope, he actually learned how to quickscope with the normal L96 scope with me first. So as you can see, learning how to do it first with the normal scope is just the best way to go. And the reason why I like the thermal scope better than the variable scope is because it zooms in further. And many people say the variable scope does zoom in further once you push circle or the R3 button, but it just gives you one extra thing to like faff around about, I think. So because it gives you something else to play around with. Many people, when you see them using the variable scope, they keep dying just trying to zoom in to kill someone at far range. I like something that's all in a package, and this is it. So as you can see, it is a good class. And here's my main sniper classes for quickscoping. And for me, my main class is just the L96 with extended mags. And the reason why I like it is because it's just more of an all-round sniping kit. Because the thermal scope, sometimes you just can't see people very well. But even though that is there, I'm not always going to be quickscoping people, if you know what I'm saying. I'm mainly going to be hard scoping online or doing quick hard scopes. Quick scoping is only in emergency situations, so the thermal scope is probably just going to be for running around in free for all like a lunatic. You probably won't get me playing with it in domination, search and destroy, and all of them stuff. Maybe search and destroy I will play with it as well. But as you can see, the accuracy is very good, and I can actually do one-shot kills with it pretty easily with quickscoping at far ranges as well, because it zooms in close. Let me just explain the rest of the class. Okay, I've also said put in a decoy and a claymore, and many people will ask why, and I think it's just because a decoy and a claymore, they work together. How? I'll explain that in a later episode of Real Snipe, so stay tuned. But also I've got a Tomahawk here, and that's also to do silent kills with a quickscope, which is a trick shot, or also just to throw at people at close range, because I also think is pretty good. So just to satisfy everyone who's a variable scope fanatic, who will probably be saying, how can you say the variable scope is not very good when I use it all the time and I find it great? Here's my analysis of it. So as you can see, yes, it is pretty good and decent, and once you've learned how to like do fine aiming with the normal L96, you should even be able to do it with this as well. So yes, the variable scope is okay, and if you want, you can actually replace one of my ultimate quickscope classes with it if that's what you really want. But for me, it's just not something that work with sniping in general, because I also play on tactical, and that means that I use the R3 button to crouch, which means that if I want to zoom in with the variable scope, I'm actually going to have to push circle, and for me that's just too much of a leap, and I just can't be asked to do that every time I want to hard scope someone who's in the distance. So that's why I use the thermal scope instead, as it zooms in far enough for me to hard scope people fine, and close enough for me to quick scope. So here's me just doing my trick shot, which is the silent shot. Some of you already know how to do it, but if you want to learn how to do it, just stay tuned to Real Snipe, and I'll be explaining that later. But next on Real Snipe will be run and gun techniques for free for all. Thank you for watching. This was Eddie from Real Gamers TV, and I'm sorry it took so long. It's just that I wanted to make it extra special.